And I sat down with John Sculley to discuss his relationship with Steve Jobs as well as his strategy for breaking into the highly competitive smartphone market. I began by asking Sculley why he thinks the Obi Worldphone can be a hit in international markets.
The reality is that only one company is successful at the premium price point, and that's Apple. And Apple is the iconic brand at the premium end of the industry. And yet you've got all of these international brands who are focused on the premium end of the industry, and the industry is moving down. Why? Because of the tremendous success which Xiaomi has had in China, and now they want to take it to India and other places in the world. But the reality is that Xiaomi proved that you can build a very good product and bring the price point down, and it's forcing these international brands to say, how do they adapt to that? Well, in the case of Obi Worldphone, since we're starting it as a new company here in Silicon Valley, we can be competitive with the price points of a Xiaomi, but we're not trying to go after Xiaomi. What we're trying to do is say, we want to bring in Silicon Valley iconic design, bring in the channel experience that we have selling all over the world in different businesses I've been in. So we're going into the 70 fastest growing countries in the world that are still adopting higher bandwidth and who want to have smartphones, particularly younger people.
Do you find it ironic that you'll actually be competing against Apple, your old company?
I don't think of it that way at all, because I always believe focus on the customer, don't focus on the competition. I don't think if we're successful with Obi Worldphones, and I believe we will be, that it has any implications for Apple, because Apple would never introduce a product at these more attractive price points, because they're doing marvelously well and they make very, very high profit margins.
You stated before that you're not a big fan of taking your product to focus groups for testing.
This is something I really learned working with Steve Jobs, and Steve said, how can I go out and ask people, what a phone ought to be or what a personal computer ought to be when they have no experience beyond what's already there today? And so we would always do consumer testing after the product had been designed to see what the reaction was, but we wouldn't go out and say, so what do you think a phone ought to be like? You never would have gotten the iPhone.
What's your impression of how Apple's new CEO, Tim Cook, is running Apple?
I think he's doing terrific. I mean, you have to say he has taken the handoff beautifully from Steve Jobs. The iPhone, is incredible. I mean, it's only, increased in value substantially since Tim became CEO. He's expanding the iPhone out into moving into some of the services which carriers do, which is, offering people a leasing program and an automatic upgrade to the next iPhone. He's putting in ad blocking software, which opens up new opportunities for profit for Apple. So he's doing things to expand the iPhone and make it even larger and connected into the other products that Apple makes.
You were forced out of Apple in 1993, stayed pretty much silent about the issue for almost 2 decades. What was going through your mind during that time?
Well, it's no fun being pushed out of a company, especially no fun being pushed out of a company when we had, in the 10 years I was there, taken Apple from being number 4 in the market to becoming the largest selling hardware PC in the world. But it was even less fun to see what they did with the company after I left, and they licensed the Macintosh operating system and almost bankrupt the company. But fortunately, Steve Jobs came back. Remember, he was pushed out as well. And we all learned from that experience. And Steve completely rejuvenated the company with the incredible products that followed. But here's what we all learned in Silicon Valley. A lot of people get pushed out of companies here. Failing's okay. As we say in Silicon Valley, fail fast, lean forward. It happens to hurt. It's embarrassing. It knocks the wind out of you. We're human beings. But you pick yourself back up and you go do it again.
Did you ever make peace with Steve Jobs before he passed?
Neither Steve nor I ever talk about there. There's some things we talk about publicly and some things we talk about privately.
As you look back on that period, how would you best characterize your relationship?
It was amazing. I mean, Steve and I were more than business partners. We were with each other, 7 days a week, and we spent time personally. We'd hike in the hills. I was like an older brother, to him that he never had, and it was. As I look back, I say, gosh, I was really lucky to have known someone as brilliant and talented as Steve Jobs.
Will this world ever see another Steve Jobs, or have we already seen someone like him?
it's hard to replicate someone exactly like Steve Jobs. I think probably the person that has many of the characteristics most like Steve would be, in my opinion, would be Elon Musk, because he's just breaking entirely new ground. You know, if you look at some of the brilliant entrepreneurs we have here in Silicon Valley, let's take Mark Zuckerberg, or Larry Page, but they're building on top of things that were there before them. Then you get someone like Elon Musk, who goes off and says, I'm going to do something, and there's no precedent. I'm going to go create civilization on Mars. Well, where's the precedent?
And at the moment, Sculley has no plans to bring Obi Worldphones to China, saying that international companies must first have a local partner to even think of doing that. He also says Xiaomi has already done a fantastic job of selling and marketing to the budget cell phone market in China.